Now, you can hear me on this one. On Facebook, you can hear me very clear, but on YouTube, you might can't hear me. So that's where we're having the problem at on the YouTube. So that's the reason why I stopped. I did to fix the YouTube. Hopefully the sound is better now. Inshallah. Type. All right. So let's minute here. He says, okay, so when you look at it, basically the author is telling us that the use of the word mushabbi or tashbih, this utilization of the word, reason why Ibn Qayyim is using it here, basically is what it's saying is that normally it is used in the speech of the books of rhetoric, okay? But the reason why he's using it here, he's going to explain that. However, what is properly better is to use the expression that is in the Quran. Allah used the word tamthil. He doesn't use the word tashbih. All right, this is what Shaykh Uthaymeen is getting ready to explain to us anyway. So he's telling us here, he says that he says, however, what is preference giving to is that what? That we should utilize the word tamthil, not the word tashbih. Okay, he said we should utilize the word tamthil. That's basically what Shaykh Uthaymeen, because this is what Allah Jalla wa Ala, this is the word that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to describe or use in regards to himself. This is the expression that he used in regards to himself, tamthil. All right. He says, as Allah Jalla wa Ala, he says, laysa kamithlihi shay. When Allah says laysa kamithlihi, all right, kamithl is tamthil. Laysa kamithlihi shay. All right. When Allah Jalla wa Ala says there is nothing none like unto him or resemble him, laysa kamithlihi shay. I hope the sound is better now, that you can actually hear the sound. Inshallah. If not, just please let us know. So he says here, now he says, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَيْسَ كَشِبْهِ. Allah did not say in the Quran, لَيْسَ كَشِبْهِ. He did not utilize what we call what? He did not utilize tashbih, the word tashbih. Naam, طيب. He says, لأنه تعبير قرآني. ولأن التشبيه صار عند بعض الناس معنى إثبات الصفات. And so this is why he's showing you that. He says because why? Number one, the reason why it's better to use the word tamthil is because Allah used it when he expresses it. And two, because according to some of the people, all right, when they listen to the word tashbih, then they understand it to mean affirming Allah's attributes. Okay, that's what they understand the word to mean. So you want to be careful when utilizing this word. So this is the Shaykh saying. He said, because they say that whoever affirms attributes for Allah, then he in reality is a person who has likened Allah to his creation. He's mushabbi. That's what the people of obvious that's different from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. What they say is that whenever you affirm qualities for Allah, you are in reality resembling Allah to his creation. So they see how they flip it around. So by that, doing that, that's what they mean by it. So when they say when they hear tashbih, they mean by it that this is a person who affirms qualities for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? This is what they say. Right? He says, وَيَرْمُونَ أَهْلَ السُنَّةِ الَّذِينَ يُثْبِتُونَ الصِّفَاتِ بِأَنَّهُ مُشَبِّهَةٌ. And they claim, and this is what they do. They claim and they throw insults towards Ahlul Sunnah. They blame Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah for affirming attributes and that they are in reality the ones who are committing resembling to Allah's creation. فإذا خُطب بلا تشبيه تخاطب من قال أن التشبيه إثبات صفات صار معنى عنده تعطيل لكن بلا تمثيل هو حق. The Shaykh says, so when you utilize the word tashbih, then the people who are not of the correct way, they will understand you to mean what they understand from it is that you're affirming qualities for Allah Jalla wa Ala, by you're resembling Allah Jalla wa Ala to his creation by affirming qualities for him. And he says, and then the meaning with them will become ta'atil. It is to deny. However, bila tamthil, that is more haq, that is more better. And this is sometimes what you see when scholars go over other scholars' works and certain things might have been missed or some things could have been better, the scholar will point that out. But the author himself, meaning Ibn Qayyim, he used the word tashbih. Shaykh Uthaymeen says, also بلا تشبيه إن أراد النفي تشبيه مطلق يعني مشابه من كل وجه فهذا لا حاجة إليه. So Shaykh Uthaymeen says, also saying بلا تشبيه. I know we're going to school here right now. This is a little technical, but you're getting ready to learn something, inshallah ta'ala, because one thing that we forget is that the deen is in Arabic, and a lot of people don't understand it, and it's important for your comprehension of Allah Azza wa Jal if you don't understand Arabic, right? Because you need to know what Allah intend by this verse. What do the Prophet ﷺ intend by this? And when it is said, is it understood like that? Right? I give you an example. A lot of us utilize the term God. Okay, it's permissible to utilize the term God. However, it's permissible only when you are trying to relate to a group of people. Do you understand this? All right. Utilizing God, and even if you look in the dictionary, whatever you want to go to Webster, whatever type of dictionary you want to look in, it does not actually befit Allah Jalla wa Ala with that title. Okay, the actual qualities, everything like that, it doesn't befit Allah. But when you're trying to give da'wah, so to speak, and you're talking to somebody, and what they relate to be this unique being and this all-powerful and the one who's the creator and so forth, and they associate that with the term God, then you can utilize it there. You understand? This is what the ulama explained to us. However, that doesn't denote Allah. You know what I mean? That God doesn't denote Allah. So you have to understand what would be more befitting to utilize for Allah. He's Al-Ilah. So if he's Al-Ilah doesn't mean just deity. It doesn't mean deity. Al-Ilah has a whole meaning associated with it. But you won't know that unless you understand Arabic. You understand? You wouldn't know that unless you go into the insight of what is intended by the actual word. So this is what the Shaykh is giving us, because many people of the deviant sects, what they have done, they utilize words and they flip them. Okay, they either deny them partially or they deny their meaning altogether, or what they do is they make a different explanation of the word which is not intended by the word, and which will throw a person off and they don't understand. This is how they work and they maneuver. So this is why we have to be aware of their tactics and actually stick to what Allah Jalla wa Ala, His Messenger said. And the scholars have done the work for us, like Ibn al-Qayyim, Ibn Taymiyyah, and many of the scholars before, like they have done the work for us and fought off a lot of these different ideological attacks. And they was able to pinpoint to us, no, this is the correct way. If you look, this is the correct view. And this is according to what Quran and Sunnah is. And may Allah Jalla wa Ala reward them and place them on their scale. So the Shaykh said, Bila tashbih, using this term, Bila tashbih, if a person intend by it to negate resemblance altogether, he says then, Amushabah min kulli wajh, resemblance from every angle. He said, then there's no need for that. There's no need for you to negate resemblance from every angle. He says, لِأَنَّهُ لَمْ يَكُنْ أَحَدٌ مِنْ خَلْقٍ, because no one from the creation actually said that. No one from the creation will actually think that the creator resembled the creation in everything. Who says that? No one comes along and say, no one from the creation actually put forth that argument. So the Shaykh said there's no need to do that. He says, okay, إِنَّ اللَّهَ مُشَابِهٌ لِلْمَخْلُوقَاتِ مِنْ كُلِّ وَجْهٍ. There's no one who says that Allah Jalla wa Ala resemble his creation, that Allah resembles his creation in everything. There's no one that we know of that came along and actually made this claim. All right, he says, وَإِذَا لَمْ يَكُنْ بِهِ أَحَدٌ فَنَفْيُهُ أَبَثٌ لَا فَائِدَةَ مِنْهُ. So if that's the case, that this was not uttered by anyone, this wasn't an argument or any claim that was put forth by anyone in the creation, then negating it in totality now, from every angle, he said, then there's no, it's frivolous. It's without purpose. It's no benefit to it whatsoever. For it's like he said, it's resembled a statement like the line of poetry or the statement like كَأَنَّنَا وَالْمَاءُ مِنْ حَوْلِنَا قَوْمٌ جُلُوسٌ حَوْلَهُمْ مَاءٌ. Right? So you listen to this statement, right? It's as if the water was surrounding us. All right? كَأَنَّنَا وَالْمَاءُ مِنْ حَوْلِنَا. It's as if we and the water مِنْ حَوْلِنَا, right, was surrounding us. قَوْمٌ جُلُوسٌ, a people sitting حَوْلَهُمْ مَاءٌ, and water is surrounding them. You might say, well, you listen to this statement, you're like, what's the fa'idah of this statement? We sitting and the water surrounding us. All right, a people sitting and then they're surrounded by water. What's the benefit in this? ما هذه الفائدة العظيمة. He said, what he says, حتى إن بعض النحويين قال مثل هذا التركيب لا يعود كلامه في اللغة العربية. He says some of the grammarians from the Arabic grammar, they say that the likes of these type of sentences, you know what I'm saying, constructed sentence like this, they are not even considered to be speech with the in the Arabic language. He says, وَلَمْ يُفِدْ فَائِدَةً, because they don't give a meaning. There's no meaning given. It's also like the statement when you say السَّمَاءُ فَوْقَنَا وَالْأَرْضُ تَحْتَنَا. The skies is above us and the earth is beneath us. Shaykh is saying, okay, what's the benefit of that? That's not even instead of speech. So that's what he's trying to tell you here. When utilizing something and saying something that has no purpose, no fa'idah for us, no reason for it, because if you say tashbih mutlaq, restrictedly, then there's no benefit for it. أنا أريد بنفي تشبيه تشبيه مطلق هنا هذا غلط. All right. So the Sheikh has given us some good points here. And for those who don't know, this is the beauty of studying Aqidah. If you don't understand the beauty of studying called creed, and I mean this is mainly a lot of the problems, then you're going to actually not really get to know Allahu Jalla wa Ala. What do you supposed to believe in? What is your what do your deen, what is it constructed upon? And that's them tenets, those important tenets to know. And we're talking about the most important tenet from Al-Islam is Allahu Jalla wa Ala. The Sheikh, he goes on, he says, وإن أراد نفي مطلق تشبيه فهذا غلط أيضا لأنه لا بد من مطلق المشابه. فمثلا سمع الله سبحانه وتعالى يشترك مع سمع مخلوق في إدراك الأصوات لكن يختلف اختلاف عظيما. All right, so if a person attend by it, as we said before, unrestrictedly tashbih, then this is also a mistake. Why? Because it necessitates that min mutlaq mushabaha, from unrestricted resemblance. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hearing, sam'ullah, it shares along with the hearing of the makhluk in regards to understanding the voices. However, it differs tremendously. There is a huge difference with Allah's hearing and the hearing of the creation. Just like living, being alive. Okay, our living and being alive in regards to just life, all right, Allah resembles that in regards to being alive. Don't get me understand. But the living in life, Allah's life is not like our life. It's a huge difference there. Okay, we might resemble in the fact that we both are alive, we are a living thing, okay? But it's not the same, all right? This is basically what the Sheikh is saying here. He says, لكن تختلف في كيفية الحياة وحل مجر. Likewise, he says it differs greatly in how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is alive, how is he living, and so forth. And he said, وحل مجر, I mean, etc. فصار نفي تشبيه فيه معاقدة لكن إذا قلت بلا تمثيل لا يقول لك أحد شيئا. So the Shaykh gave us this whole lesson right here, just explaining to us that it's better and preferable to utilize the word tamthil, because this is what Allah used in the Quran, and this is what is better to use when the author was saying mushabbi'. He said it's better for us to use tamthil. That's what the Shaykh was just talking about. The whole time the Shaykh was explaining to us that it's better to use and preferable to use tamthil. All right. And he gives us the reason. First, why? Because the Quran uses it. Second, why? Because with many of the people of deviation, they understand tashbih to mean to affirm qualities for Allah Jalla wa Ala. He says, and thirdly is because if you intend by it, and we just talked about that, if you intend by it to negate resemblance altogether in totality from every angle, then he said it's fruitless. So no benefit for it. He says, back here, indana. So what remains with us is nukran. The author said nukran. What does he mean by that? يعني ta'atil. He said, فَتَنَزَّهُ صِفَاتُ اللَّهِ عَنْ شَيْئَيْنِ. So when we negate and absolve something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there are two things. He says, أَنَ التَّمْثِيلُ وَأَنَ التَّعْطِيلُ. We negate two things from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his attributes. Think about it now. When we talk about the qualities of Allah, then what we're talking about is that we're going to negate that those qualities can have any tamthil, any method in it, that they cannot compare or resemble the creation at all. So when you talk about the attributes of Allah, then they do not resemble the creation at all, meaning they're alike. All right, they are not alike at all. He says also, we negate from it ta'atil. Okay, we negate from it ta'atil. So he says, وَهَلْ وَقَعَ أَحَدٌ مِّمَّنْ يَدَّعِي الْإِسْلَامَ فِي التَّمْثِيلِ. So the Sheikh asks a question: has anyone who claimed Islam felt into ta'atil? Has anyone who have claimed Islam, who said Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, anyone who claimed to be from Ahlul Qibla, all right, the people of the Qibla, the people who face the Qibla, have they fallen into committing ta'atil? He said the answer, al-jawab is na'am, it's yes. Yujidu an-nas mumathila. He said you can find from amongst the people who have claimed Islam those who practice tamthil. وَهَلْ وَقَعَ أَحَدٌ مِّمَّنْ يَنْتَسِبُ إِلَى الْإِسْلَامِ فِي التَّعْطِيلِ. He says, likewise, have there occurred from any of the people who claimed or inscribed to al-Islam that they felt into what they call committing ta'atil, which is denying, right? He says, نعم وهو كثير. He said there are many people who claimed Islam have felt into both of these eras. They either resemble Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to his creation, or they either deny the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala qualities and attributes. You understand that? These people have felt into this. And this, sometimes we would say, well, this ain't really important to our situation now here in the 21st century. You'd be amazing. Many of us still don't know how to properly swear. We don't know how to properly swear. When it comes to swearing to Allah and swearing on Allah and what we can swear by, we don't even know how to properly do that correct. I'm talking about correctly. First of all, you can't swear on anything other than Allah. All right. And then you need to know what you can properly swear on. All right. Meaning in terms of how the Prophet ﷺ sweared is your best starter point. Why? Because the way that the Prophet ﷺ used to swear is the way that we want to actually mimic the Prophet ﷺ, because he properly knew how to swear utilizing this for Allah Jalla wa'ala. Many of us don't know that. And a lot of other things we don't know is we don't know properly how to actually invoke Allah. Do you understand that? How do we actually call on Allah? How do we invoke on him? How do we approach him? We don't know that. These are the things we don't know. So if you think this topic here is one of those topics like, I get around to it. No, it's not you get around to it. This is the topic that let you know who is Allah. How are you going to invoke him? How to understand him? What he does not accept for himself? What he denied from himself? Absolutely, we have to know that. What he affirmed for himself. These are things we have to know. And if we understand that, then we understand what Lord we have. Okay? We understand his qualities, descriptions, and things like that. And this is what the Shaykh is giving us. He says, so the Shaykh goes into the kalam and showing us that really in actuality, everyone who practiced tamthil is in reality practicing ta'til. And likewise, vice versa, everyone who practiced ta'til, denying, is in reality practicing tamthil. We're not going to go too hard in that debate, but the author, the explainer, the shader, Shaykh Uthaymeen, he explains that. Every person who practiced tamthil is in reality denying. And every person who's denying is reality practicing tamthil. All right, he goes into that. So let's move on a little bit to the next line of poetry here. I have to mention this here. He says, now he says here, which brings this whole point. He says here, I have to mention this. He says, so we understand this right here, right? So for كل معاطي مثلا فمثلا الذي ينكر استوى الله على عرشه أو ينكر نزوله للسماء الدنيا أو ينكر أن يكون له يد نقول أنت ممثل من وجهين. He says, so for example, anyone who denies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has practiced, that Allah did istiwa, that Allah istiwa ala arsh, all right? That Allah did istiwa over his arsh, his throne, or they deny that Allah descends to the lowest heaven, or they deny that Allah has a hand, then we would say that you are a mumathil. You are someone who are mumathil from two angles. The first of the angle is that in reality, you have denied based upon, if you affirm this attribute, then you believe that it necessitates resemblance. If you say that Allah rules, then you, in your mind, you actually saying that necessitates that Allah Jalla wa'ala is like his creation, because the creation rise, and so forth. This is what you're saying. He says, فَمَثَّلَ أَوَّلًا وَأَطَّلَ ثَانِيًا. So in the beginning, firstly, you are one who what? Resemble Allah. Then the second, you become to deny. فَصَارَ كُلُّ مُعَطِّلٍ مُمَثِّلًا. That's his point. So every person who denies the reality becomes a person who resembles. Second angle is أنه إذا أطل الله عز وجل عن صفاته مثله بالمعدوم أو بالناقص فإذا قال لا يفعل شيئا باختياري ولا يشاء أفعل عباد ولا ينزل إلى السماء الدنيا فلا شك أنه ممثل، لأنه إذا انتفت صفات كمال لازم ثبوت ضدها فيكون ممثلا لله تعالى بما هو ناقص وهنا نقول أفضل أن يقال. So he says, likewise, if a person denies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he denies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and from his attributes, because in reality he is resembling Allah to something that is non-existent or something that is flawed. So this is what he's saying. If you saying that Allah Jalla wa'ala doesn't have those qualities, because those qualities in reality might resemble the creation, then what you're doing in reality, you're saying that Allah is like nothing, right? He doesn't have attributes. So you're resembling him to something that is nothing. And if you resemble him to something that is non-existent, then basically you just said Allah has a naqas. Allah is flawed, that he can't have these qualities and these attributes. You see how deep that actually goes? So when you're doing that, you are in reality denying. So you're doing mumathil and you're doing mu'attil. So basically the Shaykh is saying you are mumathil and you're mu'attil, meaning the doer of ta'atil and tamthil. So he says here, He says pretty much that's basically what you're doing. He says, so it's best that we say, it's better that we say لسنا نمثل وصفه بصفاتنا إن ممثل عابد عثاني. And he just went back and changed the whole line of poetry that Ibn al-Qayyim said. So Ibn al-Qayyim used the word tashbih. Remember we said that he used that word. Sheikh Uthaymeen told us that we should not use that word, and he gave us 3 reasons why. And so now he went back and said that the line of poetry would be preferable better by using the word tamthil, all right, than using that. And that's exactly what he just did. He just used the word tamthil instead of the word that. He said, إِذَا مَثَلَ اللَّهُ بِخَلْقِهِ صَارَ وَطَنًا. So whenever you practice tamthil with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his creation, then what happened? Allah become a wathan. By practicing tamthil to Allah, it become a wathan. What is a wathan? Anybody know the difference between a wathan and and they said a sanam, all right? So a wathan, what is a wathan? Like they call them idols, all right? And this is sort of like it becomes like Alat wa Uzza wa Manat wa Hubal wa ma ashbahaha. This is what the Shaykh is saying. It become a wathan because whenever you resemble Allah like that, when you practice tamthil, you are making Allah a wathan, an idol. فَيَكُونُ مُمَثِّلَ عَابِدًا لِأَصْنَامٍ. So a person who practiced tamthil with Allah Jalla wa Ala, he is like one who worship idols. All right, this is what Ibn al-Qayyim is saying. So Shaykh Uthaymeen saying in reality, a person who resemble Allah attributes to the creation, he has made Allah idol. That's what he's doing. He says, I'm a mu'attil, as for the one who denies the qualities from God, from Allah Azza wa Jalla. فَلَمْ يُثْبِتْ وُجُودَ إِلَهٍ. Right? And he doesn't affirm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that ilah is in existence. لِأَنَّهُ إِذَا انْتَفَتَّ عَنْهُ الصِّفَاتِ بَقِيَ مَعْدُومًا. So he says, so whereas this is because he have negated qualities and attributes from Allah Azza wa Jal, so there's nothing remaining but non-existence. If I say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not practice it, that Allah doesn't istiwa. If I say Allah doesn't have a hand, if I say Allah Jalla wa Ala doesn't speak, if I say Allah Jalla wa Ala doesn't hear, if I say you get what I'm saying? If I say Allah doesn't do all that, then what is I'm worshiping? He's non-existent. What is I'm worshiping? I'm denying all of these qualities that I'm saying that Allah has. So then what is I'm worshiping? I'm worshiping nothing. This is why he becomes one who is an abid al-buhtan. All right? What did that mean? What is an abid al-buhtan? Shaykh Uthaymeen says the abid al-kadhib. He worships that which is false. You understand? He says, يعني لا يوجد رب يعبد. Because he is not found a Lord that is worthy of worship, a Lord that is worshipped. فَلَمْ يَعْبُدُ رَبًّا. So he doesn't worship a Lord in reality. لِأَنَّهُ إِذَا سَلَبَهُ أَوْصَافَهُ صَارَ عَدَمًا. Because if he negates any of his attributes, then he becomes someone who is non-existent. Rather than أَحْسَنَ مَا يَكُونُ مِمَّا شَبَّهُ مُعَلَّفَ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهِ. And Shaykh Uthaymeen said this is one of the best things that we see how the author Ibn al-Qayyim actually worded the words. You see how he constructed it? And that's the best fitting description for those people who practice tamthil and those people who practice ta'atil. Okay, recap. What is tamthil? Resembling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to his creation. What is ta'atil? Denying those qualities and attributes that are befitting for Allah in a manner that befits his majesty, right? Without practicing any tamthil or along with it. So he says, so for mumathil ya'budu sanam. So the one who practices tamthil, he is like the one who worship an idol. Well, mu'attal, he says the one who practices ta'atil, then he's like the one who worship nothing. For what kadhib? All right, so then he's a lie. Well, I'm a muwahid. Each one of us should know these terms. What is a muwahid? A muwahid, hopefully we fit into the muwahideen. A muwahid is the one who practiced tawheed. All right, that one worshiped the ilah al-ardi was sama'i subhanahu wa ta'ala. He worshiped the ilah of the heavens and the earth. All right, which is the same. It's not 2 different ilahs. It's not 3 different ilahs, or salatatu aliha la. There's only one ilah. Ilahullahu haq. There's only one ilah. He said, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah yara ana mumathil mushrik. Another thing that Ibn al-Qayyim showed us, he said that Ibn al-Qayyim, he deemed that the one who practiced tamthil is a mushrik, is a polytheist. وَأَنَّ مُعَطِّلَ كَافِرٌ. And he deemed that the one who practiced ta'atil is a disbeliever. He's a kafir. Right? لكن هذا على سبيل الإجماع. Shaykh Uthaymeen said, however, this is in a general sense. This is in a general sense. أما عند التفصيل فيحكم على كل واحد منهما بما يقتضيه تمثيله وتعطيله. He said, as for anything specific, meaning like we're talking about a one individual, like Sister Aisha over there, she's a mumathila, right? Then we would have to investigate her case. We would have to look at the extent of her practice in tamthil. And we would have to see whether or not that falls her, that puts her under the line of being a mushrika or being a kafira. That's what Sheikh is saying. So in a general sense, those who practice tamthil with Allah Azza wa Jal, they are committing shirk in a general sense, not in a specific sense, meaning we can't place a hukm directly on them unless without investing in their case. And this is something that is extremely important in our times. I don't care who you are, I don't care what status you got. You must really understand that this is serious. Do never go out your way to call somebody a disbeliever or call someone label anyone anything without having proper understanding of the masala. Do you understand? And first of all, only Allah and His Messenger can expel someone from the deen. Only Allah and His Messenger. You understand that? Only Allah and His Messenger can expel someone from the deen, as even in Nuniyah that we're going over, Ibn al-Qayyim have a piece on that, where he says about kufr and tabdir and declare someone to be an innovator and so forth. He said all of this is haqqullah, haqqul rasuli. He said all of this is that which is the right of Allah and the right of His Messenger. It's not the right of Fulan and Alan just because we picked up some books, Aqidah Wasatiyah, or we studied Shahr Baba Harbi, or we did Usul Sunnah, and we're doing these different books, and we hearing this, and we all fired up, and we see somebody commit shirk, or we see somebody committing something, or falling to something, or we see somebody doing something that resembles the people of bid'ah, and the first thing that comes to our mind is he's a mubtadi'. First of all, who is you? Even if he felt into bid'ah, then that had to be investigated. Because when you fall into bid'ah can be felt into multiple ways, all right? So you have to understand whether or not this is bid'ah mukaffara, this is bid'ah ghayru mukaffara. You have to understand whether or not this is an action of the person or is he the actual innovator, even though both the action and the innovator is rejected due to the different narrations of Hadith Aisha, but still you must look at it. You have to be able to have the ilm of it. So if we going around talking about this person ain't knowing that person, and that's what you just saw what the Sheikh said. So even though Ibn al-Qayyim said about the people in the general sense, the Sheikh wanted to clarify to us that we can't go around placing rulings on people. We have to investigate. We have to be specifically careful when we want to go around and deal with people. You can't do that, man. You can't do that. And that causes a lot of problems. And sometimes that comes from what we call righteous indignation. A lot of us don't want to be real with ourselves, man. Start putting the microscope on yourself. Would you call yourself a kafir? Would you call yourself a mushrik? Would you call yourself an innovator? Think about it. The Prophet ﷺ said, he who does such and such is not a believer at that time. Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah said what? That these hadith, they fall under what we call tahdid. They are threats. That the iman of an individual is hovering above his head. How many of us make those mistakes and fall into those sins? Do we think of ourselves as kafirs? Do we apply that to ourselves? Do we apply the fact that, alhamdulillah, we're doing something that is opposing? As Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh, he says that what? Every individual who commits an act of innovation is opposer of the sunnah. But he said not everyone who opposes the sunnah is an innovator. You have to understand the difference. Whenever we do something that is against the sunnah, that opposes the sunnah, doesn't mean that we are innovators. You understand that? But whenever we definitely commit an act of innovation, we're definitely opposing the sunnah by committing the act of innovation. But it can be possible we don't know. It can be possible that we're following someone who doesn't know. It can be possible that we're intending to do something good, and because we don't understand the qawaid or the principle of actually doing what? Because you got to base it off of what? Off of evidence. Having the evidence, then basing your aqeedah off of that evidence, then acting. That's how Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah actually works. But we don't do that. We actually what? Go do the action, then try to find something. Believe in it, then try to find something to support that which we believe in. That's backwards. All right? The best things to do is have the evidence. Base your belief upon that evidence and then act according to it. But we don't have that, and we don't have those tools. So I just want to remind us that, and you see how the ulama teach. Sheikh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen, rahmatullah ta'ala, he brought that beautiful principle for us. Hopefully you learned a lot. You're learning more about Allah Jalla wa Ala, and we'll end this with that, inshallah ta'ala. Remember, when it comes to Allah's perfect attributes, then we must understand that we must negate from them, which Allah negates from himself, and we must negate any imperfections or any incompletions from those attributes. And we also must also affirm what Allah affirms for himself, and we must be careful from those things. Whatever we said that was incorrect in our translation is definitely from ourselves, and the shaitan, whatever said is correct is from Allah subhanakallahu wa bihamdi. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallahu khairan. Thank you all for tuning in.